Nature deficit disorder is a term coined by author Richard Louv, who wrote the book Last Child in the Woods in 2005. And he coined this term to kind of encompass the multitude of problems that occur when children are disconnected from the natural world. And since I have been a wilderness educator for the last 30 years, I've seen these problems up close and personal, especially in the last 10. And they typically fall in two categories. There's the physical side, where children will come and they have trouble navigating their physical environment. I've seen children trip over a pebble this big on a flat road. They struggle physically to make things with their hands because their hands don't have muscle tone or dexterity. They're not used to that. They get blisters easily. And they struggle with humidity or bugs or any kind of discomfort. On an emotional side, kids are showing up with an incredible anxiety that's almost shocking to me. And they have trouble with attention span. They have trouble staying focused, and they will drop a project as soon as there's some little thing that goes wrong. They'll drop it and move away and get on to something else. Today's children I consider all of them at risk, because right now, between the ages of 9 and 13, which are prime playing outside years, only 6% go out to play on their own. 6%. That means 94% of our kids are functionally disconnected and are inside. We kind of know what they're doing, right? Because the average child today in America spends over 9 hours a day on digital technology. Sometimes it's on a phone, laptop, video games, television. Sometimes they're using all 3 or 4 of those things at once. And it kind of struck me when I found this out, because, I teach hunter-gatherer skills for a living. And I know that for the entire span of our human species' existence, over 100,000 years, every one of us is descended from people that lived close to the earth their whole lives, outside, making things, hunting, gathering, fishing, farming, everything connected to nature. So we grew up and we developed, physically and emotionally and mentally in that relationship. And I realized that we are living right now in a time where we're in a social experiment. Because right now we have an entire generation of children who are functionally disconnected from nature. And that's never happened in the history of our species. So there's a boy named Russ who showed up at one of our programs, and he was a kind of a kid that he was shy, he kind of hung back a little bit, wasn't really too excited about being there. And we get that sometimes at our camp, and that's okay. I call them the observers. They like to observe when we make fire. They like to observe when we build shelters. They like to observe when we're making leather pouches. When we were doing picking raspberries, he kind of jumped in. And about halfway through, he sort of opened up a little bit, but he had his role, which was to kind of hang back. And that was fine. But the second summer, Russ was back. And this time, he was a doer. He wasn't observing anymore. And it was almost like he was trying to make up for lost time, because he started telling stories of the things that he had seen last year and instantly made 3 or 4 friends. His carving skills had improved. I knew he'd been practicing at home. And Russ jumped right in on our 3-day challenge. This camp had a program where for 3 days they had to build a shelter, make a fire without matches, and cook their food, all without the help of the staff. So Russ got in there, and his leadership pulled the group together. He knew what to do, and they got their fire in record time. And right as their shelter was coming together, there was a deluge of rain from a thunderstorm. But they were warm and cozy. It was really awesome to see. And his leadership was really undeniable. And being a wilderness educator, it sounds glamorous, but it's really a lot of hard work. But that was a success, and we were happy to get it. We felt good. But the real surprise came about 4 months later. His mother sent us a letter, and she said, Russ tried out for the school play. That was a new one for me. And she said it was a musical, and he got the lead role, and he knocked it out of the park. You know, singing, dancing, the whole thing. I was floored by that. But then her letter also contained a clipping from the Boston Globe of an article that described how Russ had convinced or inspired his classmates to build or create handmade sleeping bags as a project to give to homeless people in Boston in the winter months, because he told these stories about how cold he had been in his shelter and in how cold it must be to be homeless in Boston. And they all got involved, and people donated material. It was a big accomplishment. And she finished her letter by saying, Ricardo, I know that all this happened as a result of the time he spent out in the woods. She said, everything else is pretty much the same. There's no other factor in his life that stimulated this and helped get these, him to get involved. And Russ was able to get these results from being in the woods and then internalize that and then apply them to his life to get some success. And I call that the natural advantage. So I believe that the core elements that make up the natural advantage fall under 3 categories. There's 3 ingredients. The first, you might guess it, nature, right? You saw that coming. So nature does something to us physiologically. Like our bodies crave, whether we're children or whatever age we are, our bodies crave that feeling of squishing mud between our toes, sitting by a campfire and smelling the wood smoke and looking up at a sky full of stars. Our bodies crave reaching for some ripe fruit on a vine on a hot day. Like our bodies crave those sensations. And when we get that, nature sends signals for us to create dopamine, serotonin, all those stress-relieving hormones that let us relax, and they stimulate our immune system. They decrease anxiety, right? So nature is like one of the key things we can do to get them outside. And for us, nature does the heavy lifting for us. You don't have to do much except just be outside. But while we're outside, we move on to ingredient number 2, skills. We need to learn and give our kids skills that will help them to make things and meet their own needs. Things that kids love to do. They love to get involved and learn and make puzzles and solve things, solve riddles or whatever. They love that. So for us, we use wilderness skills, right? Because we have 100,000 years of hunter-gatherers, so I saw that coming. But you don't need to build a shelter or make a fire or throw a tomahawk. You don't need that. You can do any skill that's age appropriate. Sewing, knitting, gardening. cooking, painting, so many skills that you have. And skills allow us to practice our problem solving that it leads to confidence when we create, when we go to do that in real life. When the stakes get higher, we use those skills and that confidence to achieve higher and higher goals. So if we lose that, that's a big hole. The third is bonding. We need to be able to bond with someone. If you go out and have a powerful experience and adventure in nature, or you accomplish something in your skills, you need to be able to come back and share that with someone who can listen to you and hear your story, hear your tales of woe or your triumphs and screams of success. And we need that. And unfortunately, you can't bond with someone when they're on their phone. So bonding has to be part of our strategy, because when we bond, when we form those relationships, they help us know and understand, for children, where we fit into the family, where we fit into the tribe, where we belong. So we have nature, skills, and bonding. And I believe that this is the antidote to nature deficit disorder. There's no cavalry coming to save us and to save our kids. If we wait for the schools to respond and start a natural advantage program, our kids are going to miss out because schools don't change that fast. So it's up to us. But we have some good news. Right now there's 79 million kids under the age of 18 in the United States, and we know that 94% of them are probably disconnected. So there's plenty of places to practice, right? And the good news is that there's 95 million parents and grandparents. So we've got them outnumbered. If we just get out and start teaching getting people outside, we can turn those numbers around very quickly. And we can leave a nature legacy that will live on through our species and counteract the effects that nature deficit has on us. I just want to say that this is our chance. This is our moment in history. And our iGeneration and the generation to follow, the Alpha, they're counting on us, and they've never needed us more than they do right now. Thank you.